Good day. Today we're going to be looking at how to create a basic drawing in AutoCAD 2015. So what we're going to do is we're going to start from the beginning, go through the basic setup, and then create the drawing itself. We'll even show you how to put a few dimensions on the drawing to get you started in that realm also. You'll see the drawing as it's up on the screen here, and that will allow you to get an idea of what it looks like. I'll also have the drawing positioned in the corner so you can continue to work while watching the video and working with AutoCAD itself. The way we started drawing in AutoCAD is this opening screen. We hit Start Drawing. Pretty easy. If we're going to use a template, you'll notice that there's a template button right under that. So now we're in the basic AutoCAD drawing environment. We still have our ribbon, our pull downs. We'll have the command prompt line on the bottom, coordinates in the middle, our buttons on the lower bottom side. And if you watch the basic setup video, we showed you how to control the buttons with the customize tool here on the bottom, so you only have the buttons showing that you really need for basic drawing. As you get more advanced, you can add the buttons back in. We also have a navigation bar and our view cube over on the right hand side, so in case we need to do some zooming or panning, we can use the navigation bar, and if we were working in 3D we would use the view cube, but right now we're sticking with 2 dimensions. So our drawing is a basic shape, but right now we don't know how to draw angles, we don't know how to draw lines, so today we're going to look at how to create a basic line drawing. So to start off, we begin with the units command because we need to get all of our drawing setup done before we actually begin the drawing process. So under the big letter A, we'll find the units tool, and it's found under the drawing utilities area. And so we'll choose units, and we'll stick with the decimal units. And if you look at our drawing shows that it is 2 decimal places for our dimensions. So we'll go ahead and set 2 decimal places. Decimal degrees is set up here. It's a basic mechanical shape drawing, so we're going to stick with the standard directions and decimal degrees. And so the only thing that we needed to set up was the 2 decimal place precision. Our second setup item is polar tracking and object snap, and those are located on the bottom. Object snap and polar tracking. So I'm going to choose polar tracking. When I do that, I can hit the little arrow here, and we can choose whatever polar tracking drawing assistance we're going to work with. Now, we don't know what the angles are. We haven't looked that closely at the drawing to determine all the details yet. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into the track settings, and this will give us all the tabs of the polar tracking and the object snap that we need to set up. So we're going to turn polar tracking on. We're going to set an increment angle at 5 degrees. Why 5 degrees? Because 1 degree would be too many angles to deal with. Then it would increment every single degree. Here we're incrementing every 5 degrees. I know it doesn't sound like a big difference, but believe me, it is. If you want to test it, go ahead and swipe and type 1 degree and try to create a drawing with a 1 degree polar angle increment setting. It's much trickier to accomplish that task. We're going to leave it as tracking orthogonally, and it's going to be 0 based or horizontal 0 based, back from mathematics, the angle direction from mathematics, so we're going to use absolute. Object snap settings, these are our standard settings that we do on all of our drawings. Endpoint, midpoint, center, intersection, extension, and perpendicular. Again, in the basic setup drawing, we talk about what each of these particular tools do. And if we need an extra tool, we're going to go ahead and choose OK here after we set those up. If we need an additional tool, we can choose our object snaps again from the drop down. If you look at this little button here next to the object snap box, and 4 doors down is the polar tracking. So we can hit the down arrow right next to our object snap setting and choose tangent if we needed to, or choose nearest for that single click as opposed to having it set full time. Okay, our last setup item is layers. So we're going to choose layer properties. And right now we have only one, our base layer 0 set up. And it's not a good idea to create all your drawings on 0. It's a really good idea to use layers. And what that does is that helps us package our drawing into manageable bytes, meaning walls are on a layer, or object lines are on a layer, or our property lines are on a layer. And what that does is that allows me to categorize the items and control things like color and line type associated with those particular objects. Makes it easier to manage in the future also if I need to make changes. That's the idea. We're going to create a brand new layer. The new layer is going to be called Object. Since it's a mechanical, or it's just a general shape, I usually use Object as the base drawing layer. I'm going to hit the Enter key on the keyboard. Since I typed, I usually find that I have to hit the Enter key to move forward, and if I hit the Enter key to move forward, it accepts it. If I hit the Enter key a second time, it opens up another brand new layer for me without having to go up to the New Layer button selection. We're going to create a layer called Dimension. Since we're going to put a few dimensions on the drawing itself, we'll add a second layer for dimensioning. We'll add a third layer called Center. Even though there are no center lines, we're going to go ahead and set up a center line layer just to show you how that's done. So the first layer is Object, and we're going to change our color, and we're going to go ahead and choose an orange base color. I'd have to choose the darker orange because we're using a white background today. Dimension, I usually go with a blue or purple color. And center lines, we're going to go with a darker green color. Object lines, their line type is continuous, and the same with dimension lines. However, our center lines are going to need to have a line type setting. So when we choose our line type, and I just pick the column of line type under the center line, it pops up and tells me that there's only one line type available, continuous. But realistically, I can load additional line types. So I'm going to go ahead and load the line type. Now you'll notice all these AutoCAD ISO lines. Don't touch those. Those are metric size lines, which means they're 25.4 times the size you need them for your basic drawing here. But you will find lines which have names that actually mean something. And those are the ones you want to use, at least for our drawing environment. So now when we have center lines, we have 3 of them: center, center 2, and x2. You'll notice that center 2 is half the scale, and center x2 is twice the scale. So center and center 2. I'm going to choose center 2 because this is a very small drawing that we're creating, and so having a half scale center line would be beneficial. So I selected center 2 once. You'll notice that it's now on my selection list, so I'm now able to select it to apply it to the layer. May get confusing that it requires 2 picks to get it to show up. Object lines, we need to have a line weight. Now line weights allow you to print the objects at a thicker weight, and so that's really important for object lines, for walls, and for features which are typically a thicker, darker line as prescribed by the alphabet of lines in drafting. And so if you're not familiar with it, you can go ahead and search alphabet of lines or look in your manuals for that information. And it'll show you the hierarchy of lines, what lines take precedence, and then what lines are typically thicker and darker, like object lines, break lines, as opposed to thinner lines like hidden lines, section lines, those are typically a thinner drawn line. And so we can control the line weights with this. So the line weights, think about it, if you've got a mechanical pencil handy, go ahead and dig it out right now and take a look at the mechanical pencil. What you're going to notice on the mechanical pencil is that it's got some numbers on the side of it. And it's usually 0.5, 0.7, some of them might be 0.9, but there's typically numbers. Well, those numbers are in millimeters, and that's your lead diameter. So we've got a 0.5, 0.7, 0.9 diameter. So I'm going to go ahead and select 0.5 as my object line weight. So when it prints out, it's going to have a slightly larger width line for the object lines. What's the default? The default is 0.25. So it shows up as a very thin line as the default line weight, which is perfectly fine for what we're doing. But when we're doing object lines, it's nice to have a little bit thicker line. So that's basically your layer setup. Colors, line types, line weights. There are other settings, transparency, plot styles, whether or not to turn the printer on and off for that layer, that we can also set up. Don't worry about those. These are the key settings that you're going to be working with. All right, got to have a lot of trust at this point because we're going to hit the close button. There is no save on the layer properties. However, even though we did type it in, everything is still there. And what I did is I chose the drop-down menu here, and that gives us the ability to select what line type we create with. So whenever we're creating a drawing, we first look over the drawing itself and decide what lines are we going to create first, second, third, and fourth. Well, what you're going to find is that any time that you've got center lines, those are the ones you want to create first. And we're going to go ahead and since our drawing does not have center lines, we're going to move forward to the second line types that we typically create, which are object lines. So object is going to be our current setting layer that we're going to work with. So creating lines is pretty simple in AutoCAD. We can pick the line command with the left mouse click. We find a spot out on the screen that we like to begin with, and it doesn't have to be at an intersection. Notice that I can go anywhere in the space that we are. This is the amazing thing, is that size of the object is not that important, because we can make the drawing full size all the time, every day. Whether it's a small micro staple for surgery, or whether it's a brand new Saturn V rocket on the launching pad. In both cases, we draw it full scale. So we never scale the drawing as we create it. So when we create this drawing, our drawing is going to be 4.5 inches by 3 inches in physical size. So I'm going to go ahead and start a point. Now there's two ways to draw entities. And by the way, if you do not get all this information on your line, there is a button on the bottom called Dynamic. Let me find it. Dynamic Input. This dynamic input is why I get all this great information about angle and distance and polar information. So what it's telling me is my line is 5.82 inches long at 15 degrees. Well, realistically, I need a line that, when we do the mathematics, is going to be 3 inches long and horizontal. So I need to make it at 0 degrees but 3 inches long. Well, can I get it exactly 3 inches? 96, 99, 301. It goes 299 to 301. Well, that's not exactly 3 inches. Now, that might be close enough for what you're thinking, but it isn't accurate. And so we need to be accurate in our drawings. It needs to be exactly the size it specifies. We can't fudge this. Okay, we cannot fudge this because the dimensions will tell the story later. So it needs to be accurate. So 3.00. So I'm going to use a method called point and shoot. So I point it in the 0 direction. I discovered that I can't just arbitrarily pick 3 inches. I need to actually type it in. So I'm going to type in 3.00 for my distance. When I hit the enter key, remember if we type anything on the keyboard, we hit the enter key. The line that's now on the screen, that's horizontal, is 3 inches. Huh. But now I've got this angle. Well, what if we come back to that? So to stop a line, to stop drawing lines, I can right mouse click and choose enter or cancel. Either way, if you choose cancel, it cancels the current line, doesn't cancel lines that have been drawn. And the cool thing is that I can go ahead and pick the line command again, and this time because of object snap, I can snap back at the original starting endpoint. So that was where we started the line previously. I can left mouse click on that endpoint. Notice the green square. I'm now going to draw a vertical line 3 inches. And then I can draw a horizontal line 3 inches. So now I'm back at the top now. So I just basically went around the other side of the object. So it's important to be able to understand that you can stop and start lines and use the object snaps to help you for accuracy, especially endpoints and midpoints and centers for accuracy. But now we've got a problem. I need to create a diagonal line, but I don't know what angle it is because the drawing didn't tell me what angle it is. However, based on my mathematics skills of addition and subtraction, I've got to subtract out 3 inches from 4.5. So I need to draw an 1.5 inch horizontal line to go all the way out to the point, because what's going to happen here is I'm going to draw a horizontal leg, a vertical leg, and then I'll draw the hypotenuse. Hypotenuse. That's a math term meant for an angled line of a triangle. So we're going to go ahead and type in 1.50, and it's going to be horizontal. Now make sure that your lines are at 0 when you draw horizontal and vertical, because 1 degree or 5 degrees, not going to cut it. It's got to be accurate. Now I'm also going to draw a vertical line at 1.5 degrees. And what this is doing, this is giving us the exact placement of that point on the drawing. So 1.5 over, 1.5 down, that's the exact location of the point. Now somewhere along the line, I'm going to find, there's a midpoint, and there's the end point. So that's the end point of the 3 inch line. So what I'm going to do is draw a line. Notice that I'm in a line command. I'm going to go ahead and draw back to this endpoint by picking the object snap endpoint. And then I'll hit either right mouse and cancel, or I can hit the escape key on the keyboard. And then this time I'm going to choose the escape key to show you a different method to stop drawing lines. So we actually came across with 1.5 inches, came down 1.5 inches, drew the hypotenuse. We're now going to draw the other line, the other hypotenuse angle, to connect our other object. And I'll right mouse click and choose cancel. Again, multiple ways to stop things. But now I've got 2 lines here that I don't need. So I need to delete those. So how can I delete lines? Well, deleting lines is pretty easy. There's actually more than one way to do this. I'm going to show you one method for one object and another method for another object. Fair enough? The first really simple method is you bring your cursor over, pick the line. You'll notice that it highlights it and gives it blue dots. This is called gripping. Once it's gripped, I can hit the delete key on the keyboard. I can right mouse click and choose delete from my pop-up menu, or erase from the pop-up menu. In either case, it'll get rid of that line. So I can either choose to delete on the keyboard or the erase from the pop-up menu. I can also choose the erase command. So I can pick erase, pick the line, right mouse click, and it goes away. Now whenever we're done selecting objects, what if I didn't want to erase that? There's an undo button up top. So I can undo up at the top, and that line will come back. Let me show you that erase command again. Erase, pick the object, and notice that it says select objects. Whenever the select objects pops up, the last step is always right mouse button on your mouse. The last step is always right mouse button on your mouse. And that will stop the selection of objects. Because if I pick again, I'm going to pick another line and delete it. So far, so good. We've got our basic exterior shape of our object. So this basic exterior shape worked out quite well. Now there's two ways for us to draw the inside. We can draw the inside shape exactly the same way as we drew the outside shape, which is perfect practice, which is the way that I'm going to do it. The second method is that there is a modification tool which will help us with copying the objects that we've already created. Is it faster? Absolutely. Do you need practice with basic drawing skills? Absolutely. I'll show you at the very end of this video how to do it with the other tool using the modify. So to draw the inside shape, we're going to draw a line, and this time we're going to need to come in 0.75 and up 0.75 to find that starting spot. Since I don't know where that starting spot is, I'm going to need to draw a couple of support lines. And these support lines get me to the right starting spot. And so now I need to draw this line 2.25 inches long. And again, I'm reading the dimensions from the drawing. All right, don't know what the angle is. I'm not going to worry about that just yet. I'll do the same thing as we did before. Right mouse click, cancel. And we're going to start the line back here at the other end. Draw straight up 1.5 inches. Come across 2.25. And now it's 0.75. So I need to come over 0.75. Uh-oh. Did you see what happened here? The line oh boy, line's not straight. So what we're going to need to do is right mouse click and choose undo. Could I choose the undo up here? Yeah, but it would undo the whole command. I just want to undo that last line segment. Don't panic. If something goes wrong, right mouse click immediately and you can choose undo. Whew. That's what happens when you're not watching the screen and typing, is that you inadvertently move the mouse and you don't get a straight line. So I need to go 0.75 and then 0.75 down. And then we draw the hypotenuse back in. Remember, we look for the endpoint. There it is. Left mouse click, and then either the escape key on the keyboard or right mouse click cancel. Draw one more line from here and connect. So again, not extremely difficult. Now we showed you how to erase a line, but this time we're going to go and erase multiple lines at once. So I'm going to pick one line here, pick one line here, and I can hit the delete key on the keyboard. And don't forget, we've got two lines here. We've got a line here, but we also have a line right here. Remember, we had to draw a line on top of another line. It's good practice to erase lines that are on top of other lines, just so you have a single entity object. When you get into advanced drawing, that plays a part going forward. So now we've created the shape, which is pretty cool. I promised you at the end of this video that I'll show you how to do the opposite method, or using a different tool in AutoCAD to get the shape to be located. Well, right before that though, I'm going to show you how to put some dimensions on. And so under the annotation area, we're going to choose linear dimensions. We're going to do some basic dimensioning. So I'm going to pick linear. We can pick an endpoint, pick a second endpoint, or in this case it shows up perpendicular, which is fine. And we can place a dimension. Oh no. You know what? we forgot to change our layer. Here's one of the really cool things you can do. Remember that grip tool where we can pick objects? We can pick this object, come up, and choose the correct layer that we need to put it on, and it will change it to that layer. How do we get rid of the blue dots? Hit the escape key on your keyboard to get rid of the blue dots. However, it didn't set our layer, so we need to actually go back up and then reset the dimension layer. We'll choose linear again, pick an endpoint, and we'll say 0.75 there. Pick an endpoint, 2.25, linear, pick here, pick here. So we've got that done. Linear, here, here. Ooh, don't like that. So if I don't like that, we're going to hit the escape key and do it again. Linear, here, here. Better, a little bit easier to view. But we're going to clean these up here in just a second. Linear, here, here. And we got the 3 inches. We're all set, I think. 5. So now, one of the cool things about dimensions is you see there are 4 decimal places, and we only said units was 2. Well, dimension style is what sets those up. But I can pick those and grip them. So I'm going to grip all the dimensions. I'm just going to pick all the dimensions. Make sure you only pick dimensions. Right mouse click after picking the dimensions, and one of the options that will pop up is called precision. And we're going to go ahead and set all the precision to 2 decimal places. And you'll notice that it'll move the 0.75s in if it has room. And I can also grip and move the text. Let me go ahead and clean this up just a hair. It'll go ahead and grip and move that text inside if I grip that blue point, just left mouse click on the blue point and move it around. Very cool. So that's the way that it works with creating dimensions. Okay, final thing to show you how you can get the interior shape created a little bit faster than the previously created. So I'm going to turn the dimensions off with the layer command. So I'm just going to go ahead and turn off the layer. That's one of the reasons why we put the dimensions on a separate layer, so we could turn them off. Yes, it's okay. We're going to go ahead and turn the current layer off. We're going to go back to the object layer as our current working layer. Again, using the drop down accomplishes that task. So we created the inside shape. I'm going to go ahead and delete the inside shape. And there's this quick tool called Offset. And the Offset button is right here. And this allows us to copy objects at a pre-specified distance. So if I select Offset and say the distance that I'm copying is 0.75, because that's the distance that is specified here in the dimensions, I can offset this horizontal line inside 0.75, this vertical line inside, this line here, this line here, and this line there. Uh-oh, doesn't look like those look exactly like the other ones. So we're going to end up deleting these two and redrawing them. Ooh, did you see that? What I did is I windowed around it. So instead of just individually picking them, I picked a point, created a green window, and it selected both objects and hit the delete key. Alright. I also need to clean up these corners. And so to clean up those corners, I'm just going to use the fillet command because it's a radius of 0. I'm going to go ahead and pick these two objects, pick the fillet command again, pick what I want to keep. And now I need to 0.75, 0.75 over. And then hypotenuse. And so, is that exact? Well, we'll find out. Could we have just offset these? I don't know. So to find out, we're going to have to use what is known as an align dimension here. And I'm getting a little bit into the weeds, but it actually isn't 0.75, it's only 0.5324. Actually, it's probably a little bit different here. Align dimension, midpoint, straight across the perpendicular, 0.5303. So it's not 0.75. So it's a good thing we didn't use the offset because that would have been incorrect. So there you have it. Creating basic drawings and bonus content all in the same drawing environment. Have a great day.